well, making what we think is a really good Vole guard. There's many other Vole guards you can buy. I'm sure there's others you can make. After trying a lot of different ones for like 10 years, we've found that this is the cheapest and most effective and most multifunctional, most durable that we've found. You can buy rolls of window screen like this from a hardware store. I think they're 100 feet long. You can get 36-inch widths, or you can get 48. You might even be able to get 24 too, but we found the cheapest. I've run the numbers on it because we've made like over 1,000 of these over the years, that you can get. What we like to do is get the 36 or 48 and then chop it in half, slice it in half on a metal blade chop saw. Put a metal disc in a chop saw and slice it. Once you get it from the store, before you open it up, really. This has been opened in it, so it's very loose. And then you can double it, so you can get 2 18s out of a 36 or 2 24s. I like 18s. We're in pretty good snow country here, but people who are even snowier, I've had a friend who lost a lot of apples above 18 inches at around 20 to 22 inches in a deep snow year, because the voles will travel through the snow, come across the trunk or smell it out, girdle your tree. So, you know, if in doubt, go 24, but I don't like 20. I mean, if you can get away with 18, the shorter you can get away with, the better, because it's cheaper, it's less material, it's faster to make, arguably, and it's also it's just less management. And also for young trees, I'll show you in a minute, you can have to prune it less. Baby trees, big tree guards aren't compatible with very small trees easily unless you stake it, because if you have a 12, 14-inch whip you're putting in the ground, you don't want your tree guard much bigger than the tree, or it'll tip over. So then you get into having to stake the tree guard in so it doesn't all fall over. Then you got to add a stake to the equation, which sometimes you want anyways, then it's okay, but sometimes you don't. So I like 18. We've yet to lose trees above that, but it's possible. So just keep that in mind. So I get the roll. When we're making lots of these, we'll actually have like a piece of plywood set out, and we'll just take a utility knife and zip pieces. But I'm only making a handful today for just some new apples that I got in the ground. And so that's okay. I can do it with these shears. This hasn't been cut in half because this is I think this is a 24-inch roll. So I didn't want, I don't want 12, so I didn't chop this in half. I like 36 and chopping it to 18s. This is 18, it's pretty reasonable. 24, I mean, this is 24 inches, I believe, here. That's just pretty ridiculous. It's pretty tall. I mean, again, if you're in really snowy country, you might need it. In an ideal world, I'd go like 20, 22 where we are, but that's not an even breaking point. So what I'll do here is, actually what I found is I can get even more out of it by doing this. I'll slice it this way in half and go this way with it, about halfway, and then get it started, and you can just really run with it pretty well. If you have another person, they can hold it, or you can step on it. I'm just trying to demo it. That works good. I'm gonna step on this. I'm gonna make a whole bunch while I'm at it. Okay, so I got one side secured with my foot, and then this will go pretty fast. This is actually a good example of making a 24-inch roll work, because I'll show you in a second how we'll do it. We can customize our height. Okay, so now I got this whole roll, this whole length, long length, like 30 feet, 25 feet. And this is maybe only 16 inches, or well, this is 18, roughly, varying with my cut, high. Important to note that one side's the factory edge and one isn't. One's what I just cut. So you're going to take that into account later when you put it on the tree. Let's make sure this is still on. Yeah, it is. Okay. So you're going to want to make sure you put the factory edge up so it's less likely to damage the tree, and the rough edge down. That's generally what I found works best. So now I'm just going to feel out, just because I know from experience what kind of length I want, but if you're not used to it, you could measure it. So, and I know what kind of trees I'm protecting now. Some of these are bigger trees, so I'll go a little longer. Like some are in situ and some I just planted. So here's like for a bigger tree. And I like to prune up, by the way. I'll show you that in a minute. Like I like to have no lower branches, which is counter to what a friend of mine, Stefan, who's a very experienced, much more experienced with fruit trees than I am, guy who likes to leave, at Miracle Farms, he likes to leave low branches for voles to eat. And I find that when the snow settles, it'll rip those lower branches down and tear the bark. So I prune up big time. So here we go. We've got a nice, you know, about 20-inch vole guard here. I kind of start by just giving this a little bit of a crimp, a little bit of a fold right there. And then actually, so it's nice to have a nice working height. I'm just on a hay bale right now. And you roll it up. You can get pretty fast with this after a while. Then I spin it over. I squeeze it a bit. This is aluminum, by the way, window screen, I'm pretty sure. And then I kind of give this a slight little fold too. This, the edge here. Gloves are nice because this stuff's kind of, and then you see it's not quite gripping. It's not. So if you want it to actually, you want it to hold itself better than that, ideally. So sometimes I'll take another, I'll roll from this side now and reverse roll it to get it to hold itself, its shape. And that works pretty good too. And again, you can just kind of squeeze it and massage it a bit. And so, okay, there you go. So that's pretty good. That's the rough side. I'll put that side down. Yeah. And then let me just show you what this looks like on the tree. Okay, so we'll go put them on the trees. Here's a handful in about 10 minutes and show you. And I should mention, I only vole guard apples. After vole guarding a lot of other trees over the years, I've only found that apples are the ones that really get hit. Now that might be different where you live, but here that's the case so far anyway. So let's plant it a little high. That looks like some M111 rootstock. This is a red field. So I may add a little soil to this, but that's fine. Those roots will just die back. It's a wetter area, so I planted it high. So I'll prune it right at the collar. And then here's the graft, you can see, from the spring. Here's what the shoot we want. So I'm going to prune this other guy off right now. You could leave it if you're worried about the graft, but right now it's done. So we want to get this up. A lot of people don't prune their trees enough, is what I found. So we'll take, you know, these are a little on the long end for such a small tree. Here's a smaller one. And notice this actually doesn't have the factory edge up or down like I was talking about before. No, it does. Factory edge is up. It doesn't matter a lot. You can always just put a rough edge on both sides, and I'll show you what to do in a second. So now we just put this on the tree. This is why that little seam is nice. It'll help hold it. That little grippy seam there. So then I'll make sure no chips, no mulch is in the way. And then this is a little bit of a rough example, but I will open up the inside just a little bit, because I haven't seen it be a big problem, but you can get on windy sites, especially with bigger trees, it'll go back and forth in the wind, and if it's not rolled over, you can get quite a bit of bark damage there. I've never seen it be anything as bad as vole damage. When I say vole damage too, I'm talking about the physical problem, not the heavy metal band that is pretty well known called vole damage. Just saying. And then I'll put the mulch around it here to keep it down, and also to encourage voles when they're here to contact this tree up in here, not below. You know, they can get under. I haven't had that be a problem, but I've heard that is a problem for some people. So there we go. We've got, 14 inches of vole protection here. In a big snow year, I have my stake here, and I know where this is, and it's zone 1. I'll make sure to go around on skis and tamp the snow down around it. Just if there's periods of weeks where the snow, or maybe even months where the snow is above it, if I'm worried about that. So that's the process. And this, this needs to live with the tree for years, because voles can be catastrophic to even a pretty good size apple. So you're in it to win it here. So you want that determines how much of an expansion capacity you need. Variety. Note, I'll put the labels on the rod, the fiber rod I have here. These are about $2 to $3. This is a fat one. I would get skinnier ones. Lowcostmarkers.com has them. You really got to mark your trees in most settings when they're this little, or they'll just get either forgotten or not a great example of pruning there, but they'll get forgotten or walked on or whatever, and so it's worth investing a few bucks in that. So here's a little bit of a taller one. Go right here. Once the tree gets bigger, I'll try to label the tree itself, but labeling is problematic. It's really easy to girdle the tree if you forget that you have that label on there, and you don't open up the wire as the tree gets older and older. You can run into problems. I've got a lot of wires embedded in trees, which isn't the end of the world. The best thing, ideally, obviously, over the long run is to map the tree and walk around with a smartphone or a GPS or just a map and label, make a little map and label where that tree is in the landscape and save that, because you're going to lose track of the variety otherwise, most likely. Sometimes I'll bend it a little to kind of hold the guard together. Here, I'll fold this over again. It's pretty good. I need to bring more mulch to this tree. Make sure it's right at the base. Make sure the vole can't get in there either. And this is really, I would have really done better to have pruned that. That's in good shape. You can see there's turgor in the stem. So, because I want to make sure this is alive before I go pruning this. Because if it's not, if the graft fails, by the way, we'll just graft it again next year in situ, top work it. But this graft's fine. It just didn't get much energy. So I got to prune this big guy, which sucks, but you know, if this was higher up, I'll leave it. If it's high enough where I'm above the Vole guard and I'm okay with a split in the trunk, I'll add another variety or 2 or 3, and later on, year 2, 3, 4, 5, I'll start grafting up higher and, you know, create a lot of zone 1. All my zone 1 apples I'll make multi-grafts because I just want that diversity. I can't have hundreds of apples in zone 1 that I can keep up with, but I want hundreds of apple varieties. This is a false measure on M111. So this is a pretty tall guard. So when the guard is taller than the tree, it's not the end of the world. I could get a smaller one, or I can just say, hey, it's not worth it. I'm out here doing this right now. Got to get into other things. It's fine. I just need to make sure in the spring that, you know, this tree gets above this guard, which it will. I mean, the trees aren't stupid. They know where the opening is. They go straight up. So I'm still going to preemptively open this because I'm here now. That's what a lot of tree care I find is, a lot of care in general around the home and farm is like, you do work a couple steps ahead when you're in a spot on the land, because if you don't, with this assumption you just come back and do what you need to do before it needs to be done, you might not, and then it's not done. So if in doubt, if you're in a spot, most of the work's going to the spot thinking of, oh, this needs to be done, making sure it's done. It's the vigilance and the travel to the spot. Do it ahead of time. So that's why I'll definitely bend this open now, even though it doesn't need to be bent open now. So it will come late June, July, when this tree starts getting above this point. It only has to grow 3 inches. Here's a Yates. So ideally this would have been pruned earlier in the year and we would have had more energy. This graft would have been this high easily if I had pruned off the seedling, the rootstock. But didn't happen. I don't maintain my nursery that much sometimes, so it's a little bit of a survival of the fittest sometimes, and you wanna prune back that seedling as soon as you see that the graft is taken and you start to get some real growth going on and transpiration and, you know, interaction between the tree and the leaves, and the new leaves are feeding the tree. You can prune back that rootstock base. I should also mention that I'm no apple expert. I'm just offering this to you guys because I've found that this works after a bunch of years of doing this. But, you know, there's a lot of ways to do everything. You may find information that shows to do this differently or whatever, but for us, this seems to work really, really well. Right, Akiva? Here's a larger tree. I just pruned it up a little. This is a Yarlington Mill on M111. A nice rod next to it. Show you the process once more. There you go. There's a rock in there, a piece of soil. I need some more mulch here, of course, way more, but that'll hold it down for now. You know, if you're really windy site and you're worried about this Vole guard bending the tree over, you could, you know, put your rod right here. But I'm not too concerned with that. These are pretty well rooted. They were planted from pretty big pots. Get a nice split above the graft. You know, you've got your grafted variety. This is a banana mare. I grafted it in April of this year on Antonovka, so we're in a drier area, so starting to see that the M111 is better for wet areas, and the Antonovka may or may not be better for drier, but it definitely needs it drier, it seems. So that's fine to have this split in some situations, and you know, you're gonna get a tree with two big trunks down low, the bowl will split. So that's not the end of the world, but it's not really what we want, in part because if we don't vole guard this, we have a huge risk of this tree just dying from vole girdling. So we gotta vole guard it. And it's not gonna vole guard very well sucking these two in here, because then you're gonna have a really narrow crotch and you don't want that. So this should have been pruned earlier, but better to prune now than never. So I'm gonna prune it right there. And I hate doing that. That's a lot of, you know, it's a lot of potential energy, but this thing will come back in the spring. But that's a good example of why you want to go through in early June, late May, and prune your new apple grafts, which I did not do this year, because you're gonna get your trees up higher that first year. There's no reason you can't have a young apple like this, first year graft, in good soil, deep pots, or in the ground straight up, if pruned well, get, you know, 3 feet tall. I rarely do that, because I don't tend them so much after, which is fine. For me, that's a sweet spot, is just get it done and I get on to other things. It's better than not doing it, but, you know, better to keep up with it. That's a lesson I'm trying to learn over the years in general. It's like, if you're gonna do it full on, keep up with it. But I've been doing a lot of experimenting with a lot of stuff over the years. So I've still been learning, well, what do I even really want to do? What's worth doing? What's worth putting my time into it? What even works? And now that I have a sense of that, after like 10 plus years of doing that, I can be like, okay, this is gonna work. Do it full on. Put more time and energy into it.